Knox Delaney pressed his thumb against the coffee mug's handle and watched steam rise from the black liquid. The freight yard sprawled beyond his office window, 18 employees already moving between the trucks and loading docks. He'd built this from nothing after leaving the Marines. Every dollar earned through sweat and smart decisions. His phone buzzed. A text from Brielle. Running late for lunch. Sorry, babe. Knox set the phone face down on his desk. Brielle had been running late for everything the past 3 weeks. Late for dinner. Late coming home from work. Late responding to his messages. He'd noticed the pattern but hadn't said anything yet. Knox never jumped to conclusions. He observed first. The office door opened, and his uncle Silas walked in, wiping grease from his hands with a shop rag. Even at 68, Silas moved like a man half his age, his shoulders still broad from decades of mechanical work. You eating lunch or just staring at that coffee? Silas asked. Knox stood and grabbed his jacket. Meeting Brielle at the Vineyard restaurant. She'd been acting strange lately. Knox paused with his hand on the doorknob. Silas had raised him since he was 14, after the drunk driver took his parents. The old man noticed everything. What makes you ask? You've been quiet. More than usual. Silas tossed the rag into a bin. Just wondering if wedding nerves got you both twisted up. Knox shook his head. Nothing I can't handle. The Vineyard restaurant overlooked rolling hills of grapevines, their leaves turning gold in the October sun. Knox arrived 15 minutes early and chose a table near the window. He ordered water and waited. Brielle rushed in 25 minutes later, her dark hair pulled back in a way that made her look younger than 29. She kissed his cheek and slid into the chair across from him. Sorry. The candle company had a crisis with the autumn launch. You know how it is. Knox studied her face. She wouldn't meet his eyes directly, her gaze sliding to the menu, the window, her phone. What kind of crisis? Product packaging. Super boring. She waved her hand dismissively. How's your day going? Good. We landed the Portland contract. That's amazing. Her smile seemed forced, too bright. You're going to take over the whole Pacific Northwest at this rate. Knox leaned back in his chair. Tell me about Palm Springs. Brielle's fingers tightened around her water glass. What about it? You haven't said much since you got back. How was the bachelorette weekend? It was great. Really fun. The girls loved the resort. She opened her menu with more force than necessary. Should we order? I'm starving. Knox watched her scan the menu she'd already memorized after dozens of visits here. Her phone sat face down on the table, something she never did when they ate together. Usually she kept it visible, checking messages from friends or work. Which resort did you stay at again? The Saguaro. You know, the colorful one. She still hadn't looked up from the menu. Expensive place. My dad helped with the cost. Wedding gift, sort of. Knox nodded. Wesley Summers had money to burn, and he liked showing it off. Did everyone stay the whole weekend? Most of us. Jessica left early Sunday morning for her kids. Brielle finally looked at him. Why all the questions? Just curious. You were gone 3 days and barely told me anything about it. She reached across the table and squeezed his hand. I missed you. That's all that matters, right? Knox squeezed back, studying her expression. Right. They ordered lunch and talked about the wedding plans, the venue details, the guest list. Brielle seemed more relaxed now, laughing at his stories about difficult customers and sharing gossip from her marketing job. But something still fell off. She kept checking the time on her phone, and when it buzzed with notifications, she glanced at them without opening the messages. After they paid the check, Brielle kissed him goodbye in the parking lot. See you at home tonight, she said. I might be a little late. Meeting some college friends for drinks. Which friends? Just some girls from my sorority. Nothing exciting. She was already walking toward her car. Knox stood by his truck and watched her drive away. In 2 years together, Brielle had never been secretive about her plans. She used to tell him everything, sometimes in exhausting detail. Now she gave him facts without context, answers without explanations, but he pulled out his phone and scrolled through their recent text exchanges. For the past 3 weeks, her messages stopped every night around 9 o'clock. Before Palm Springs, they used to text until 11 or midnight, sharing random thoughts and photos of their day. Knox started his truck and drove back to the freight yard. He had work to finish, but his mind kept circling back to small details. The way Brielle's voice changed when she talked about the trip. How she'd rearranged her toiletries in their bathroom, putting some items in new places like she was trying to create distance from their shared space. At Tia's desk, Knox opened his laptop and pulled up their shared photo account. Brielle had uploaded pictures from Palm Springs, but only a few. Group shots at the pool, a sunset dinner, the 5 women posing by the resort sign. Nothing from Saturday night, which seemed strange for a bachelorette party. His phone rang. The Portland client needed to change their delivery schedule. Knox handled the call, then spent the rest of the afternoon coordinating routes and managing logistics. By 6 o'clock, most of his employees had gone home. Silas appeared in the doorway of Knox's office. "You coming to dinner?" Made too much chili again. Knox saved his work and shut down the computer. "Let's go." Silas lived in the same house where he'd raised Knox, a modest place with a workshop out back and a garden that produced more vegetables than 2 men could eat. They sat at the kitchen table and ate while Silas talked about a transmission he was rebuilding for a neighbor. "You remember when you were 16, Silas said, and you thought Ashley Martinez was cheating on you?" Knox set down his spoon. "She was cheating on me." "Yeah, but you didn't know for sure until you saw them together. You spent 3 weeks driving yourself crazy with suspicions." Your point. Sometimes the thing you're worried about is exactly what you think it is. Sometimes it's not. Silas refilled Knox's bowl without asking. Either way, sitting around wondering doesn't solve anything. Knox finished his dinner in silence. Silas was right about one thing. Wondering never solved anything. But Knox had learned something important in the Marines. Information was power, and power required patience. Knox got home at 8:30 to find Brielle's car in the driveway. The lights were on in their bedroom, and he could hear the shower running. He grabbed a beer from the refrigerator and sat on the back porch, watching darkness settle over their small yard. Brielle emerged 15 minutes later, her hair damp and her skin flushed from the hot water. She wore a robe he didn't recognize, cream-colored with lace trim around the sleeves. "How were drinks with your sorority friends?" Knox asked. "Good. We went to that new place downtown." She curled up next to him on the porch swing. "Kelly's getting divorced. Really messy situation." "Sorry to hear that." "Yeah, it's awful. Her husband found out she was having an affair." Brielle's voice carried a note of disgust. "I can't imagine betraying someone like that." Knox took a long drink of his beer. "People do stupid things. Not people like us, though. We're solid." She leaned against his shoulder, and Knox wrapped his arm around her. Her hair smelled like expensive shampoo, different from what she usually used. He almost asked about it, then decided not to. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, listening to crickets and distant traffic. Brielle's phone buzzed once in her lap, but she didn't check it. "I love you," she said quietly. "Love you too." But as Knox said the words, he noticed how easily they came out. Automatic, like a reflex instead of a feeling. The next week passed in a pattern of small observations. Brielle worked late twice, came home with new perfume she claimed was a free sample, and changed her phone password. She was affectionate and attentive, bringing Knox coffee in the morning and asking about his day with genuine interest. But the inconsistencies piled up like evidence in a case he didn't want to solve. Friday night, they went to dinner with mutual friends at a steakhouse downtown. The group included Ira Monroe, a loudmouth guy who worked in real estate and told the same stories every time they saw him. Knox had never liked Ira, but Brielle found him entertaining. They were halfway through their main courses when Ira, 3 drinks in, started talking about bachelor parties. "At least you don't have to worry about Knox doing anything stupid," Ira said to Brielle. "Guys too straight-laced to even look at another woman." "Knox is perfect," Brielle agreed, smiling at him across the table. "Unlike some people." Ira grinned at the group. "Remember that wedding last summer where the groom got caught with a stripper the night before? His bride found out during the ceremony." Everyone laughed and shared stories about wedding disasters and cheating scandals. Knox listened without contributing, cutting his steak into precise pieces. "At least Coulter didn't try anything stupid at your bachelorette," Ira said to Brielle, waving his fork for emphasis. "Unless he did." The table erupted in laughter, but Knox kept his eyes on Brielle. She froze for half a second, her fork suspended halfway to her mouth. Then she forced a laugh that sounded too sharp. Coulter wasn't even there, she said quickly. He's ancient history. Good thing, said Jessica, one of Brielle's bridesmaids. That guy was bad news. The conversation moved on to other topics, but Knox filed away the moment. Coulter Van was Brielle's ex-boyfriend from college, a musician who dumped her after 2 years to pursue his career. She claimed she never heard from him anymore. Knox excused himself to use the bathroom and pulled out his phone in the hallway. A quick search showed that Coulter was still performing around California and Arizona. His social media showed recent posts from Palm Springs. When Knox returned to the table, Brielle was telling a story about her candle company's latest product launch. She seemed more relaxed now, back to her normal self. But Knox noticed she avoided looking at Ira for the rest of the evening. Saturday morning, Knox told Brielle he was going fishing with Silas. Instead, he drove to his office and used the company computer to do some research. He'd learned investigation techniques in the military, and old habits died hard that Brielle's Venmo account was linked to his email notifications for share expenses. Knox scrolled through her recent transactions, looking for anything unusual. Most were normal: coffee shops, gas stations, restaurants with friends. Then he found it. A payment to Coulter Van for $50 sent Saturday night during the bachelorette weekend. The memo said, "Thanks for everything." Knox stared at the screen for a full minute. $50 could mean anything. A shared meal, concert tickets, payment for music equipment. But Brielle had said Coulter wasn't even there. He opened their shared cloud account and browsed through Brielle's recent photos. Most were from the Palm Springs trip, but several had been deleted since she first uploaded them. Knox checked the trash folder and found them. One photo made his stomach clench. Brielle in a white hotel robe, sitting on a bed with champagne glasses on the nightstand. Her hair was messy, her makeup smudged. In the background, barely visible at the edge of the frame, were men's shoes. Expensive sneakers that Knox didn't recognize. Another photo showed Brielle and her friends at a pool party, but in the background was a familiar figure. Coulter Van, holding a guitar and talking to someone off camera. Knox saved the photos to a separate folder and cleared the browser history. He sat in his office chair and looked out at the empty freight yard, his mind working through the implications. Brielle had lied about Coulter being there. She'd paid him money for something. She'd been alone with him in a hotel room, wearing nothing but a robe. Knox's phone buzzed with a text from Brielle that housed the fishing. Catch anything good? He typed back, still waiting for the big one. Love you. See you tonight. Knox set the phone down and started his truck. He had enough information to confront her, but something told him to wait. Rushing into accusations rarely produced the whole truth. Better to let her think he suspected nothing, that he drove to the lake where he'd told Brielle he was fishing and spent 2 hours sitting on the dock, watching the water and thinking. By the time he got home, he'd made his decision. How was fishing? Brielle asked when he walked through the front door. Peaceful, Knox said. Didn't catch anything, but it was good to clear my head. She kissed him and went back to folding laundry. Knox watched her work, noting how natural she seemed. If he hadn't seen the evidence himself, he never would have suspected anything. I've been thinking about the wedding, he said. Oh, what about it? I want to make sure everything's perfect for you. No surprises, no problems. Brielle smiled. It's going to be beautiful. Your uncle's so excited to walk you down the aisle. Silas is a good man. He taught me that loyalty is the most important thing in any relationship. I agree completely. Brielle folded one of his work shirts with careful precision. Trust and loyalty. That's what makes us work. Knox nodded and went to shower. Under the hot water, he let himself feel the anger for exactly 60 seconds. White-hot fury at being played for a fool, at having his trust broken by someone he'd planned to spend his life with. Then he turned the water cold and let the emotion drain away. Anger was useful, but only if it was controlled. Knox had learned that lesson the hard way, watching his parents' killer walk away with a light sentence because the prosecutor let emotion cloud his judgment. When he stepped out of the shower, Knox was calm again. He had a plan forming in his mind, still rough around the edges but growing clearer. He was going to give Brielle a chance to tell him the truth. And when she inevitably lied again, he was going to make sure she faced the consequences. Sunday evening, Knox made dinner for both of them. pasta with the sauce Brielle loved, salad, a bottle of wine from her father's vineyard. He set the table with their good dishes and lit candles. "What's the occasion?" Brielle asked when she came home from yoga class. "Do I need an occasion to cook for my fiancé?" She kissed his cheek and went to change clothes. When she returned in jeans and a sweater, Knox had already poured the wine. They talked about work and wedding plans while they ate. Knox kept the conversation light, asking about her bridesmaids and the final venue details. Brielle seemed happy and relaxed, laughing at his jokes and refilling his wine glass. After dessert, Knox leaned back in his chair and studied her face. "I've been thinking about Palm Springs," he said, but Brielle's hand paused while reaching for her wine glass. "What about it? You didn't tell me much about what you actually did there." "I'm curious." "We did typical bachelorette stuff. Pool time, spa treatments, too much drinking." She took a careful sip of wine. "Pretty boring, actually. Did you run into anyone you knew in Palm Springs?" "No, why would we?" Knox nodded slowly. "Just wondering. Small world sometimes." "Not that small." Brielle started clearing the dishes. "Wanted to watch a movie?" "Sure." They settled on the couch to watch a comedy, but Knox barely paid attention to the screen. Instead, he watched Brielle laugh at the jokes and curl up against his side like nothing had changed. She was either an excellent actress or genuinely believed she'd done nothing wrong. When the movie ended, they went to bed. Brielle fell asleep quickly, but Knox lay awake staring at the ceiling. Tomorrow he would ask her directly about Coulter. Give her one final chance to tell the truth that, if she lied again, he would know exactly what kind of person he'd almost married. Monday morning, Knox waited until Brielle finished her coffee before speaking. "I need to ask you something," he said. She looked up from her phone. "What's wrong? You sound serious. Was Coulter in Palm Springs while you were there?" The color drained from Brielle's face. For a moment, she looked like she might deny it. Then her shoulders sagged. "How did you find out?" "That doesn't matter. What matters is that you lied to me." Brielle set down her coffee cup with shaking hands. "Knox, I can explain." "Go ahead." "He was performing at the resort. Pure coincidence. I didn't know he was going to be there." "What happened?" "Nothing happened. We talked for a few minutes after his set. Caught up on old times. That's all." Knox pulled out his phone and showed her the photo of her in the hotel room. "This looks like more than talking." Brielle's face crumbled. "Knox, please. It's not what you think." "Then explain what I'm looking at." Tears started down her cheeks. "We had a few drinks. I was drunk and emotional about the wedding. He walked me back to my room to make sure I was safe. In your robe, I spilled wine on my dress. I had to change." She reached for his hands, but Knox pulled them away. "Nothing happened between us. I swear on my father's life." Knox stood up from the table. "You paid him $50. For what? How do you know about that?" "For what, Brielle?" She looked down at her hands. "He bought drinks for our group. I was just paying him back." Knox walked to the kitchen window and looked out at their yard. Every explanation she gave felt rehearsed, like she'd been preparing for this conversation. "Look at me," he said. Brielle wiped her eyes and faced him. "Did you sleep with Coulter Van in Palm Springs?" The silence stretched between them for 10 seconds. Then Brielle's shoulders sagged in defeat. "Yes." The word hit Knox like a physical blow, even though he'd been expecting it. Hearing the truth was different from suspecting it. "Why? I don't know. I was drunk and scared about the wedding, and he was there, and..." She started crying again. "It just happened." Knox felt something cold settle in his chest. "Just happened. It didn't mean anything. It was a stupid mistake." "A mistake." "Knox, please. I know how this looks, but we weren't married yet. Technically, it's not even cheating." Knox stared at her. "Technically. I mean, yes, it was wrong. I know it was wrong. But we weren't officially husband and wife yet, so it's not like I broke any vows." Knox turned away from her and walked toward the front door. "Where are you going?" Brielle called after him. Knox paused with his hand on the doorknob. In that moment, watching the woman he'd planned to marry try to rationalize her betrayal with legal technicalities, something fundamental died inside him. That was the moment she died to me, he thought. "I need some air," he said, and walked out. Knox drove around Ashland for 2 hours before returning home. His mind was clear now, focused on a single objective. Brielle had shown him exactly who she was. Now he would show her exactly who he was. When he walked through the front door, Brielle was sitting on the couch crying. She looked up at him with red, swollen eyes. Knox, I'm so sorry. I know how awful this must be for you. Knox sat down beside her. We need to talk about this. I'll do anything to make it right. Anything. Knox studied her face. The tears seemed genuine, but so had her lies. Tell me what happened. Everything. Brielle took a shaky breath. We had drinks after his set. I was drunk and emotional about the wedding, and he was being so understanding. One thing led to another, and we ended up in my room. How long? It doesn't matter. How long, Brielle? Most of the night. She covered her face with her hands. But it didn't mean anything. It was just sex. Just a stupid, meaningless mistake. Knox felt that cold sensation spreading through his chest again. Meaningless. Coulter means nothing to me. He never did, even when we were together in college. You're the man I want to marry. You're the one I love. She reached for his hands, and Knox let her take them. I was scared about the wedding, she continued. About becoming a wife, about all the responsibility. I panicked and did something incredibly stupid. But it's over now. It will never happen again. Knox looked into her eyes. I forgive you. Brielle's relief was immediate and overwhelming. She threw her arms around his neck and sobbed against his shoulder. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for not giving up on us. I know I don't deserve it, but I'm so grateful you're still here. Knox held her while she cried, stroking her hair and making soothing sounds. Inside, he felt nothing but cold calculation. If we can move past this, he said, I want to try, but no more contact with Coulter. Ever. Never. I swear on my life, never again. And no more lies between us. No more lies. Complete honesty from now on. Knox kissed the top of her head. Then we'll get through this. Brielle pulled back to look at his face. Really? You really forgive me? I love you. Knox said. People make mistakes. What matters is how we handle them. She kissed him then, desperate and grateful. Knox responded appropriately, playing the part of the understanding fiancé who was choosing love over betrayal. But as Brielle settled against him on the couch, talking about how they would rebuild their trust and make their marriage stronger, Knox was already planning. She thought he was healing. He was preparing for war. The next morning, Knox began implementing his plan. First, he called the wedding venue. I'd like to make a change to our registry setup, he told the coordinator. I want to run all gift money through my business account for tax optimization. That's not uncommon for business owners, the coordinator replied. I'll need written authorization from both parties. Knox had Brielle sign the authorization that evening, presenting it as a routine financial matter. She barely glanced at the paperwork before adding her signature. Smart thinking, she said. My dad will be impressed by how organized you are. Knox filed the signed document in his home office safe. Now he controlled all wedding gift funds. The following week, Knox scheduled a meeting with the lawyer who drafted their prenuptial agreement. I want to add a clause, Knox told him. What kind of clause? Infidelity provision. If either party engaged in premarital infidelity and failed to disclose it before signing, the agreement becomes void. The lawyer raised an eyebrow. That's fairly standard in high-asset marriages. Any particular reason for the addition? Just want to make sure we're both being completely honest with each other. The lawyer drafted the amendment that afternoon. Knox brought it home and presented it to Brielle as a legal requirement from Wesley's attorney. Your father's lawyer wants us to sign an addendum, he explained. Something about disclosure requirements. Brielle read through the document quickly. What's all this about premarital infidelity? Standard language. Just says we're both entering the marriage with clean slates. Makes sense. She signed without hesitation. Knox watched her write her name and felt cold satisfaction. She just voided her own legal protections. Knox's third strategic move required more subtlety. He began having careful conversations with mutual friends, planting seeds of doubt without making direct accusations. Brielle seemed different after Palm Springs, he mentioned to Jessica during a chance encounter at the coffee shop. Different how? I don't know. Distant. Like something happened that she doesn't want to talk about. Jessica's expression shifted slightly. Did she tell you about running into Coulter? She mentioned it. Said it was no big deal. Yeah, that's what she told us too. Jessica paused, stirring her latte thoughtfully. though she did disappear for a while Saturday night. We figured she went to bed early. Knox nodded. Probably nothing. Wedding stress, you know. But he could see doubt forming in Jessica's eyes. She was remembering details, connecting dots. Knox had similar conversations with two other bridesmaids over the next week. He never said anything directly negative about Betrayal, just expressed mild concern about her behavior since the trip. Let them draw their own conclusions. Within days, the bridesmaids were questioning Betrayal more closely about Palm Springs. Knox could tell from Betrayal's increasing defensiveness that his strategy was working. The final piece of Knox's plan was the most delicate. He needed Coulter at the wedding without Betrayal knowing about it. Knox created a fake email account and contacted Coulter as a representative of Wesley Summers' vineyard. The Summers family is hosting an upscale wedding reception and specifically requested a folk musician with experience at luxury events, Knox wrote. Your recent performance in Palm Springs came highly recommended by several guests who will be attending. Coulter responded within hours, excited about the opportunity. Knox sent him a contract and deposit, with instructions to arrive early for sound check. This is exactly the kind of gig I need, Coulter replied. Thank you for thinking of me. Knox deleted the email account after confirming the booking. By the wedding day, he would have all the pieces in place: financial control, legal protection, social pressure, and a means to expose Betrayal's lies in front of everyone who mattered. 2 weeks before the ceremony, Knox found Betrayal on the phone in their bedroom. She was speaking quietly, but he caught fragments of the conversation. I know it's complicated. Yes, I miss you too. After the wedding, things will be different. She hung up quickly when she noticed Knox in the doorway. Who was that? He asked. My cousin in Portland. She's having relationship problems. Knox nodded, but made a mental note. Betrayal's Portland cousin was happily married with 3 children. Another lie to add to the growing list. That night, Knox checked their shared cell phone account online. Betrayal had been texting a number not in her contacts list. The call started 3 days after Knox's supposed forgiveness and continued every few days since. Knox traced the number through a reverse lookup service. It belonged to Coulter Van. She'd been in contact with him for weeks, despite promising Knox that all communication had ended. Despite swearing on her life that she would never speak to Coulter again, Knox sat in his office and stared at the evidence. Betrayal wasn't just a cheater who'd made a mistake. She was a systematic liar who had no intention of keeping her promises. The week before the wedding, Silas noticed Knox's unusual calm during their regular dinner together. You seem different lately, the old man observed while cutting his steak. Different how? Peaceful. Like you've made up your mind about something important. Knox set down his fork. Maybe I have. Want to talk about it? Not yet. Silas studied his nephew's face. Son, I've known you since you were 14 years old. You're planning something. Knox met his uncle's eyes. She's been lying to me, Silas. About everything. You sure? Completely sure. Silas nodded slowly. Then you do what you think is right. But make sure you can live with it afterward. Knox thought about his parents, about the values they'd instilled in him before their deaths. Truth mattered. Honor mattered. Some things were worth fighting for. Are you really going to marry her? Silas asked. Knox finished his beer and set the empty bottle on the table. I'm going to give her the wedding of her dreams. Saturday morning, Knox told Betrayal he needed to run errands. Instead, he drove to his office and began planning that if Betrayal was cheating or planning to cheat, or had already cheated and was covering it up, Knox needed to protect himself. He wasn't going to end up like the men he'd seen in divorce court, stripped of their assets by women who'd betrayed them. First, he called the wedding venue to discuss the registry. Knox told them he wanted to run all gift money through his business account for tax optimization. The venue coordinator agreed without question. Wesley Summers had already signed off on most financial arrangements, trusting Knox to handle the details. Next, Knox reviewed the prenuptial agreement Wesley had insisted on. The document protected the Summers family assets, but it was fairly standard otherwise. Knox made an appointment with the lawyer who drafted it. I want to add a clause, Knox told the lawyer Monday morning. What kind of clause? Infidelity provision. If either party engaged in premarital infidelity and failed to disclose it before signing, the agreement becomes void. The lawyer nodded. That's not uncommon. Basically, a disclosure requirement with teeth. Exactly. Any particular reason for the addition? Knox kept his expression neutral. Just want to make sure we're both being completely honest with each other. The lawyer drafted the amendment that afternoon. Knox brought it home and presented it to Betrayal as a minor legal update. Wesley's lawyer wants us to sign an addendum, he explained. Something about disclosure requirements. Betrayal read through the document quickly. What's all this about premarital infidelity? Standard language. Just says we're both entering the marriage with clean slates. Makes sense. She signed without hesitation. Knox watched her write her name and felt a cold satisfaction. If she was hiding infidelity, she just voided her own legal protections. The third part of Knox's plan required more subtlety. He began having quiet conversations with mutual friends, planting seeds of doubt without making direct accusations. Betrayal seemed a little off after Palm Springs. He mentioned to Jessica during a chance encounter at the grocery store. Off how? I don't know. Distant. Like something happened that she doesn't want to talk about. Jessica's expression shifted slightly. Did she tell you about running into Coulter? She mentioned it. Said it was no big deal. Yeah, that's what she told us too. Jessica paused, though she did disappear for a while Saturday night. We figured she was tired. Knox nodded thoughtfully. Probably nothing. Wedding stress, you know. But he could see the doubt in Jessica's eyes. She was remembering details, connecting dots that maybe hadn't connected before. Knox had similar conversations with 2 other bridesmaids over the next week. He never said anything directly negative about Betrayal, just expressed mild concern about her behavior. Let them draw their own conclusions. The final piece of Knox's preparation was the most delicate. He needed to get Coulter to the wedding without Betrayal knowing about it. Knox created a fake email account and contacted Coulter as a representative of Wesley Summers' Vineyard. He offered Coulter a lucrative gig playing acoustic music at a wedding reception. The family specifically requested a folk musician with experience at upscale events. Knox wrote, "Your performance in Palm Springs came highly recommended." Coulter responded enthusiastically. He needed the money, and playing at a vineyard wedding would be good for his reputation. Knox sent him a contract and deposit, with instructions to arrive early for sound check. By mid-November, all the pieces were in place. Knox had control of the wedding finances, legal protection from Betrayal's deception, and the means to expose her lies in front of everyone who mattered. The only thing left was to wait for the wedding day. The week before the ceremony, Silas noticed Knox's unusual calm. "You seem different," the old man said while they worked on a truck engine together. "Different how?" "Peaceful. Like you've made up your mind about something important." Knox tightened a bolt with careful precision. "Maybe I have. Want to talk about it?" "Not yet." Silas nodded and went back to work. He'd raised Knox to think things through before acting, and he trusted the boy to make the right decisions. Wednesday night, Betrayal's phone rang while they were watching television. She glanced at the screen and declined the call. "Who was that?" Knox asked. "Telemarketer." But Knox had seen enough to recognize Coulter's name on the display. They were still in contact, despite her promises. Thursday morning, Knox woke up with absolute clarity about what he was going to do. Betrayal was lying to him, had probably been unfaithful, and would continue deceiving him after they were married. She'd shown him exactly who she was. It was time to show her exactly who he was. Friday night. The rehearsal dinner went perfectly. Wesley Summers gave a speech about family and tradition. Betrayal's mother cried happy tears. The wedding party laughed and toasted the happy couple. Knox played his part flawlessly, thanking the guests for their support and expressing his love for Betrayal. She beamed at him from across the table, radiant in a dress that probably cost more than most people made in a month. After dinner, Silas pulled Knox aside. "You ready for tomorrow?" he asked. Knox looked at his uncle, the man who'd taught him everything about loyalty and honor and standing up for what was right. "I'm going to give her the wedding of her dreams," Knox said. Silas studied his face for a long moment. "Whatever you're planning, make sure you can live with it afterward." "I already know I can." Knox went home and found Betrayal packing for their honeymoon. She was excited, chattering about the resort in Maui and the activities they'd booked. Knox listened and made appropriate responses, but his mind was already focused on tomorrow. They made love that night, and Knox felt like he was saying goodbye to something that had never really existed. When Brielle fell asleep, he got up and sat by the window, watching the stars and thinking about the moment when everything would change. By morning, Brielle Summers would understand exactly what kind of man she tried to deceive. Knox woke up at 6 a.m. on his wedding day, feeling completely calm. Beside him, Brielle slept peacefully, her dark hair spread across the pillow. In 4 hours, she would walk down the aisle expecting to marry him. Instead, she was going to learn that actions had consequences. That he showered and dressed quietly, then drove to the vineyard to oversee final preparations. The weather was perfect, clear sky, mild temperature, no wind. The kind of day that made photographers happy and brides believe in fairy tales. Wedding vendors bustled around the property, arranging flowers and setting up chairs. Knox checked his watch. Coulter would arrive for sound check in an hour. Still believing he was performing for a stranger's wedding, Knox's phone buzzed with a text from Brielle. "Can't wait to marry you today. Love you so much." He deleted the message without responding at 9 o'clock. Knox's truck pulled into the vineyard parking area just as a beat-up Honda Civic arrived from the opposite direction. Coulter stepped out carrying his guitar case, looking around uncertainly at the elegant venue. Knox walked over before any of the wedding staff could intercept him. "Coulter Van, that's me. Are you at the vineyard?" "In a way." Knox extended his hand. "Knox Delaney." Coulter's face went white. "What's going on?" "You're here to play my wedding." "Your wedding?" "But the contract said." "I know what the contract said. I wrote it." Coulter set down his guitar case. "Look, if this is some kind of setup." "It is, but not the kind you're thinking." Knox gestured toward the ceremony space. "You're going to perform exactly as agreed. Same songs, same pay. The only difference is that you'll know whose wedding it is." "Why would you do this?" "Because I want you here when I expose what really happened in Palm Springs." Coulter took a step backward. "Nothing happened in Palm Springs. Then you have nothing to worry about." Knox picked up the guitar case and handed it back to Coulter. "Sound check starts in 10 minutes. Knox left Coulter with the other musicians and drove to the bridal suite, where Brielle was getting ready with her bridesmaids. He knocked on the door and waited for permission to enter. Brielle sat in front of a mirror while a makeup artist applied the final touches. She looked stunning in her wedding dress, every detail perfect from her styled hair to her pearl earrings. "You're not supposed to see me before the ceremony," she said, smiling at him in the mirror. "I wanted to give you something." Knox pulled a small jewelry box from his pocket. "A wedding gift." Brielle's eyes lit up. "You didn't have to do that. Open it." Inside the box was a delicate gold necklace with a pendant shaped like a heart. Brielle gasped and held it up to catch the light. "It's beautiful. What does the engraving say?" Knox had chosen the words carefully. "For my wife, who gave me everything. I love it." Brielle fastened the necklace around her throat. "It's perfect." Knox kissed her forehead. "See you at the altar." He left before she could respond, knowing it was the last time he would voluntarily touch her. Guests began arriving at 11 o'clock. Knox greeted them in his black tuxedo, accepting congratulations and playing the role of nervous groom. Wesley Summers clapped him on the shoulder and expressed pride at gaining such a fine son-in-law. Knox's employees had been given the day off to attend, and they mingled with Brielle's family and friends on the vineyard terrace. Everyone commented on how perfect everything looked, how lucky Knox and Brielle were to have found each other. At 11:30, Knox found Silas adjusting his tie near the ceremony space. "You clean up good for an old mechanic," Knox said. "You sure about what you're doing?" Silas asked quietly. "Completely sure." "Then I'm proud of you. Your parents would be too." Knox felt a momentary tightness in his chest. His parents had believed in justice, in doing the right thing, even when it was difficult. They would have understood what he was about to do. The string quartet began playing at exactly noon. Knox took his position at the altar with the officiant, a local pastor who'd known the Summers family for decades. Wedding guests found their seats, cameras ready to capture the perfect moment. Knox checked his jacket pocket and felt the envelope containing printed screenshots, text messages, and a notarized statement he'd obtained that morning. Everything he needed to end this charade. The music changed to signal the processional. Bridesmaids began walking down the aisle in their soft pink dresses, each carrying a bouquet of white roses. Knox watched them approach with detached interest, noting which ones avoided his eyes. Jessica, was the matron of honor, and she looked nervous as she took her place at the altar. She knew something was wrong, but couldn't identify what. The music swelled, and every guest stood as Brielle appeared at the back of the aisle. She was radiant, glowing with happiness as she began her walk toward marriage. Wesley Summers escorted her with obvious pride, his chest puffed out like a peacock. Knox watched them approach and felt nothing. No love, no regret, no second thoughts. Just cold determination to see this through. Brielle reached the altar and kissed her father's cheek before taking Knox's hands. Her eyes were bright with tears of joy, and her smile could have powered the vineyard. "You look beautiful," Knox said, and meant it. She did look beautiful. Too bad it was all built on lies. The pastor began the ceremony with words about love and commitment, about the sacred bond between husband and wife. Knox listened without hearing, his attention focused on the moment when everything would change. "Marriage is a promise," the pastor said, "to love and honor each other through all of life's joys and challenges." Knox thought about promises and how easily Brielle had broken hers, about honor and how she'd thrown it away for one night with her ex-boyfriend. The pastor reached the exchange of vows. "Knox Delaney, do you take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in sickness and in health, for richer or poorer, for better or worse, until death do you part?" Knox looked at Brielle's expectant face, at the crowd of witnesses waiting for his answer, at the life he was about to destroy. "No," he said clearly. "I don't." The collective gasp from the guests sounded like air being sucked out of the world. Brielle's face went from joy to confusion to horror in the space of a heartbeat. "Knox?" she whispered. Knox turned to face the assembled guests, his voice carrying easily across the silent vineyard. "This isn't a wedding," he announced. "It's a reckoning." He pulled the envelope from his jacket and handed it to the pastor. "Inside you'll find evidence that my supposed bride engaged in infidelity and then lied about it repeatedly." Brielle grabbed his arm. "Knox, stop. Please." Knox gently removed her hand. "The evidence includes text messages between Brielle and her ex-boyfriend Coulter Van, photographic proof of their encounter in Palm Springs, and a notarized statement from Mr. Van confirming they engaged in sexual relations during her bachelorette weekend." The crowd erupted in shocked murmurs. Brielle's mother let out a cry of dismay. Wesley Summers stood frozen, his face turning red with rage. "Furthermore," Knox continued, "by failing to disclose this infidelity before signing our prenuptial agreement, Brielle has voided all financial protections that document provided." He turned to Wesley. "Sir, you'll find that your daughter just forfeited her legal claim to any marital assets, including the wedding registry funds that I now control through my business account." Wesley stepped forward. "This is preposterous. Brielle would never." "Ask her yourself," Knox suggested. All eyes turned to Brielle, who stood in her wedding dress looking like she might collapse. Tears streamed down her face, ruining her makeup. "Is it true?" Wesley demanded. Brielle opened her mouth, but no words came out. "Coulter Van is here today," Knox said, "playing music for your reception. You can ask him directly if you'd like confirmation." That broke Brielle's silence. "Knox, please don't do this. We can work through it. I made a mistake, but I love you. You love me." Knox's voice was incredulous. "You had sex with your ex-boyfriend during your bachelorette party, lied about it for weeks, continued communicating with him after promising you wouldn't, and lied about your whereabouts as recently as last Friday night." Each accusation hit like a physical blow. Brielle actually staggered under the weight of them. "That's not. I can explain. You can explain to your father why his family name is about to become a laughingstock in this town." Knox stepped down from the altar. "You can explain to your bridesmaids why they wasted their money on dresses for a ceremony that was never going to happen. You can explain to all these guests why they drove here to witness a lie." Knox walked toward the parking area, leaving chaos in his wake. Behind him, he could hear Brielle sobbing, Wesley shouting, and guests buzzing with shocked conversation. Silas caught up with him before he reached his truck. "You okay?" the old man asked. "I'm perfect," Knox replied. They drove away together, leaving the wreckage of what should have been the happiest day of Brielle's life scattered across the vineyard like broken glass. BY evening. The story had spread through Ashland like wildfire. Knox's phone rang constantly with calls from friends, employees, and curious acquaintances, but he ignored them all. He and Silas sat on the porch of the old house, drinking beer and watching the sunset. "Feel any different?" Silas asked. "Cleaner," Knox said after thinking about it. "Like I took a shower after being covered in mud." "No regrets?" "None." Silas nodded. "Your parents raised you right before they died. They'd be proud of how you handled this." Knox thought about his mother and father, about the values they'd instilled in him before a drunk driver cut their lives short. They'd taught him that truth mattered, that character was everything, that some things were worth fighting for. "She could have just told me the truth," Knox said. "If she'd been honest from the beginning, we could have worked through it. But she wasn't honest. No, she chose to lie, over and over again. That tells me everything I need to know about who she really is." Knox's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The message was from Coulter. "I'm sorry. I should have told you the truth when you came to see me." Knox deleted the message without responding. Coulter's apology was meaningless now. Over the next week, Knox learned the full extent of the fallout from his wedding day revelation. Wesley Summers had disowned Betrayal publicly, claiming she disgraced the family name. Her bridesmaids had distanced themselves, embarrassed by their association with the scandal. The story had made it into the local newspaper's gossip column. Knox received a few apologetic calls from mutual friends who'd initially blamed him for the dramatic confrontation. Once they learned the full story, most admitted they would have done the same thing in his position. Brielle tried calling him repeatedly, but Knox never answered. She sent long text messages begging for a chance to explain, promising to make things right, declaring her love and regret. Knox read them once and deleted them then on Thursday. Exactly 1 week after the failed wedding, Knox's secretary informed him that a woman was in the lobby asking to see him. "Tell her I'm not available," Knox said without looking up from his paperwork. "She says her name is Gemma. Says it's about Coulter Van." Knox paused. He remembered the name from his research. Gemma was Coulter's girlfriend, a photographer who lived in Portland. "Send her up." Gemma turned out to be a petite redhead with intelligent eyes and a firm handshake. She sat across from Knox's desk and studied him with obvious curiosity. "I wanted to thank you," she said without preamble. "For what?" "For exposing what really happened in Palm Springs. Coulter finally told me the truth after your wedding disaster made the news." Knox leaned back in his chair. "What truth is that?" "That he slept with your fiancée and then lied about it when you confronted him." Gemma's voice was steady, but Knox could see the hurt in her eyes. "I've been wondering why he was acting strange lately. Now I know. I'm sorry you got caught in the middle of this." "Don't be. I'm better off knowing what kind of man I was dating." Gemma stood up. "I just wanted you to know that some good came from your dramatic gesture. You saved me from making the same mistake you almost did." After she left, Knox sat in his office thinking about unintended consequences. His wedding day confrontation had been about justice and truth, but it had also prevented other people from being deceived. Maybe that was worth something. 6 months later, Knox stood in his expanded office overlooking the Seattle shipping district. His freight company had grown beyond his original projections, with new contracts in Washington and Northern California. Success had a way of following men who made hard decisions and stuck to their principles. His personal life remained deliberately simple. He'd gone on a few dates with women who understood his situation, but nothing serious had developed. Knox wasn't sure he was ready to trust someone with his heart again, and he refused to waste anyone's time pretending otherwise. Silas visited every few weeks, proud of Knox's business success, but more interested in his emotional recovery. The old man had been through his own share of betrayals and understood that healing took time. "You're not bitter," Silas observed during one visit. "That's good. Bitterness eats a man from the inside." "I'm not bitter," Knox agreed. "I'm careful." Knox had heard through mutual acquaintances that Brielle had moved to Boise to live with her aunt. Her marketing career had effectively ended when the scandal made her unemployable in Ashland's small business community. Her last social media post had been cryptic, "Some lessons come too late." Knox felt no satisfaction in her downfall, but no sympathy either. She'd made her choices and lived with the consequences, just like everyone else. One evening in late spring, Knox was working late when his phone rang. The caller ID showed Gemma's name. "I hope you don't mind me calling," she said. "I got your number from my contact at the Portland Shipping Company." "Not at all. How are you doing?" "Good. Really good, actually. I started my own photography business, and it's taking off faster than I expected." "Congratulations. I was wondering, would you be interested in having coffee sometime? I'm driving through Ashland next week for a client meeting." Knox considered the offer. Gemma was attractive, intelligent, and had shown good judgment in how she'd handled the Coulter situation. She understood betrayal and wouldn't judge him for his trust issues. "I'd like that," he said. "Great. How about Thursday afternoon?" After they hung up, Knox looked out his office window at the city lights. 6 months ago, his life had exploded in spectacular fashion. He'd lost his fiancée, his wedding, and his faith in romantic love. But he'd kept his integrity, his business, and his self-respect. Most importantly, he'd learned that some people were worth trusting and others weren't. The trick was figuring out which was which before it was too late. Knox locked up his office and drove home through the quiet streets of Ashland. Tomorrow would bring new challenges and opportunities. Just like every other day, he was ready for whatever came next. Knox never spoke publicly about what happened at his wedding. When people asked, he simply said that sometimes the truth was more important than convenience. Those who knew him understood that he'd acted with honor in an impossible situation. Betrayal's name became a cautionary tale in certain circles. What happened when someone confused forgiveness with stupidity, when they mistook patience for weakness? Knox had given her every opportunity to tell the truth, and she'd chosen deception instead. In the end, the story wasn't really about revenge. It was about consequences, about the price of dishonesty, about what happened when someone finally said enough. Knox Delaney had learned that closure wasn't always about conversation or forgiveness. Sometimes it was about silence, about walking away, about refusing to accept less than he deserved. Some people called him cold. Others called him smart. Knox called it justice.